have seen the world through the touch of my fingertips, heard from the flight of the wind. What I can see or hear, I cannot say. Walk with me, and I'll show you something along the way. Rajesh, who was born with a hearing impairment, slowly lost his vision as he grew older. Today, at the age of 23, he is totally blind and profoundly deaf. That, however, does not keep him from communicating effectively with his mother or from enjoying his favorite movies. He has discovered, through the sense of touch, the ability to see, hear, and speak. Deafblindness is a unique disability, a combination of both vision and hearing loss. For most of us, it is almost impossible to fathom what life would be like had we been unable to see or hear. It is way beyond our comprehension to imagine what it would be like to suffer from both disabilities at the same time.
People asking me, whom do you work for? And I used to say deaf-blind. And I said, oh yes, deaf and blind. Oh, you work for the blind. Oh, you work for the deaf. And I said, no, I work for deaf-blind. There's no hyphen, there's no and. There's a child who's deaf as well as blind, not deaf or blind.
Since 95% of what we learn comes through what we see and hear, deaf-blind children face enormous challenges in communication, mobility, and learning even the most basic skills.
You want to experience what deafblind is? Shut your eyes, put something in your ears and see what the world is. And to many it clicked then. They said, yes, now we know what deafblindness is.
How is deafblindness caused? There are many causes of deafblindness, but the two main causes are rubella and Usher syndrome. Other causes include traumatic accident, age-related illness, and child syndrome, which lead to deafblindness in children or adults. Usher syndrome is a genetic condition, which causes deafblindness usually from birth, and sight loss over a number of years. Rubella is also known as German measles. If a woman gets this when she is pregnant, it can severely affect her unborn baby's sight and hearing. It can also damage the heart and brain.
For 2.5 months he was in hospital, struggling for life. He was having that jaundice, that initial birth jaundice they call it. He was treated with phototherapy. Then he had to be given a lot of oxygen, maybe about 1.5 months. So that oxygen, of course it was later on known that over oxygen has damaged his vision, and now he is totally blind. Simultaneously it has also affected his brain, and it's a case of delayed milestones.
Today, over 450,000 people in India suffer from deafblindness. It is extremely unfortunate that due to the lack of adequate awareness, society often labels these people incorrectly, sometimes as severely mentally retarded. It is shocking to note that fewer than 25 of India's entire deaf-blind population received dedicated professional assistance until a few years ago. That was before Sense International came to India in 1997.
I would put creation of Sense International India more as a contribution of organization working for children in need, rather than a decision from an international organization to start something in not so well developed country.
Sense International India is a non-profit, non-governmental organization that works toward improving the quality of life for deaf-blind people in India by supporting the development of sustainable specialist services.
we want to create more services. We want to create quality services for people who are deafblind, young adults, children, because at the moment there are not much services available in India.
Sense International India is backed by Sense International UK, the world's largest NGO working with deaf-blind. With over 45 years of research in this field, Sense is India's first national NGO that possesses the expertise to work with people suffering from deaf-blindness.
For each child, according to his needs, his potentials, and to some extent his interest also, we decide on a program, we make an individual curriculum for him or her, and then start working on that. With two major sensory sense channels not really functioning fully, it's very difficult for them to develop cognitively, to develop in the area of language and communication, and to understand anything unless we give them the real experience. So we present them with the real object, give them the real experience, use all the sensory channels, stimulate all the senses. That's what we call it, multi-sensory approach. We start as early as possible, take the child ahead in all areas of development, and then see that how independent we can make them.
Today, Sense International India has partnered with hundreds of organizations by offering them support and training, so that they in turn can work with people suffering from deaf-blindness.
It's no more my dining table, which is Sense International India. It's an entity of its own. It's an organization which people want to be associated with, and an organization which has created a deaf-blind movement in this country. It gives a lot of satisfaction.
Sense has been successful in developing programs which include home-based services, daycare educational units, community-based rehabilitation services, vocational training units, and teacher training programs.
बच्चों के लिए ये संस्था इतना अच्छा काम कर रही है, उसके लिए वास्तव में बहुत
This organization is doing such good work for my kids. We would like to really thank them for what they have done. They have kept both of our kids here and have taught them everything that is possible with sign language.
Collectively, we can create a better tomorrow for our children.
The greatest challenge is to empower people with this disability to attain social acceptance and gainful employment. It has been repeatedly demonstrated through programs all over the world that, with the right kind of support and education, deaf-blind people can learn to communicate and become active members of society.
Matthew, he has gone back to Kerala. He has settled well. He got married to a normal girl, being deaf-blind, and he is owning his own a tailoring unit. He manages it, and he has got a few employees.
When Dhaya was born deaf and blind, her parents did not know where to turn for help. Finally, she was referred to the deaf-blind unit of the Blind People's Association in Ahmedabad, a service supported by Sense International India. Every small achievement is a huge step for Dhaya.
Previously, Rohan used to eat with this hand, and means we have to provide the chapati in his hand, but now he looks for it. He can on his own, he can look for it, and hand directly goes into his mouth.
I can see a lot of improvement in her eating habits and also while she moves around. The teacher comes every morning and trains her. Now she is a lot better. She manages all her daily activities, chops the vegetables, washes utensils, and fills water. She can do everything on her own. They have kept my son Lokesh in their vocational training unit. Earlier, his behavior was restless and he used to shout a lot. But now, since the last couple of years, there is a lot of behavior modification. He is much better now.
काफ़ी अंदर आया है.
As part of its services to support partner organizations, Sense International India trains teachers in an attempt to create a pool of specialized teachers in the field of deaf-blindness in India. This group comprises teachers who are drawn from different organizations throughout the country that work with the deaf-blind. Once the session concludes, all teachers return to their parent organizations with a treasure of knowledge and practical skills that strengthen their programs and the expertise of their fellow staff members.
So basically we try to give them a complete picture of deafblind education, or rather the scenario of deafblind education in India. So we try to give them aspects related to training as well as policies, so everything basically that a special educator should know. We take people from organizations who either have deafblind units or who are planning to start a deafblind unit, and then they come here, they get trained for a year, and they go back and they start working in the respective organizations with deafblind children, or they help their organization to start a unit.
Sense International India also runs a resource and information unit. This unit is the only one of its kind on deaf-blindness in India. Its prime objective is to produce and distribute information about the different aspects of this disability in India.
There was a lack of awareness of information on deafblindness. There are lots of books available on deafblindness, but not in as relevant to the Indian context. So what we do is we get all these books to ourselves. We get in this material. We sort it out in Indian languages, adapted it to Indian conditions. Take the help of partner organizations, take the help of teachers and special educators who are working with these children. Try to adapt this information into the Indian context and from the viewpoint of a mother, of a family, of a parent, and then disseminate this material. We also do this in various Indian languages. We also provide this material in various other formats such as braille, large print.
Sense International India also produces a newsletter called Sparsh, which carries up-to-date information about the developments in the field of deafblindness.
Sense International India succeeded in creating the awareness that deafblind children have very specific needs. And I think that is one of the biggest achievements an organization working for deafblind could ever think of.
Sense International India has formed forums of experts, policymakers, parents and organizations who address various issues with the government and society at large in an attempt to ensure sustainable development.
For a deafblind child, the world is limited to his arm's reach. Beyond the fingertips of a child who is deafblind, there's nothing. You can't make him understand that there is world beyond his reach unless and until you go down to the level of the child and explore things with him, for him.
We urge you to be a part of this movement. Your support would go a long way in helping several deaf-blind children experience the joy and power of acceptance in a society we take for granted as our own. From choosing to educate a single deaf-blind child, to setting up an entire deaf-blind service, you can choose the extent of your involvement and responsibility.